Good morning. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I am here. It's the Healing Home special episode because it's Valentine's Day and it's 11 a.m. our time. Unfortunately, Kaylee is not here, and I'm not quite sure what happened here. I'm pretty bummed because I was very excited to talk to her, and who knows, maybe she'll pop in. I sent her another message on Telegram to see if everything's cool. Um, so regardless, I just wanted to drop in and say, hey, what's going on? Interesting times. Okay, so Kaylee is super awesome. She's a great astrologer, and she does her Moon Day Tarot every week, right? And so I tuned in yesterday, and I learned that right now what's going on is called a Saturn chasmy. Now, anyone in the chat can correct me if I say that wrong. Chasmy, which is interesting because from doing some research, I learned that what this means is when it's basically when a planet is within 1 degree of the sun. Now, I'm not an astrologer. I don't know much of the language, besides things I've researched on my own and times I've had my chart read, and I've had my chart read by Kaylee, by the way, and she's fantastic. Um, so if you're looking for chart readings, she is great with it, and I've always gained so much insight about myself, having charts read by people who are practiced in this craft, right? And so this whole Saturn chasmy thing is really interesting because um, it lines up with some of the energies that I've been experiencing over the past week or so, and then other people that I've talked to. Okay, Chance just got me. Kazimi. Kazimi. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Kazimi. Okay, so Saturn Kazimi is what we're going through right now. And so if you want to learn more about that, I recommend checking out her Moon Day Tarot from yesterday, which the link to that is in the description because she goes into what that means. But what I found interesting about it is that when this happens to a planet, it's basically an opportunity for the planet to have a rebirth. And Saturn is all about rebirth. It's all about regeneration, going to the underworld. It's the planet of lessons. It's the planet of boundaries. It's father time. It's mother time. It's all these things. So, Saturn, to me, in my opinion, one of the things I was going to bring up with Kaylee was that it seems to me that Saturn would be really comfortable in this position, right? Because you're dealing with all a lot of the same themes that Saturn has just on its own. So you throw in this mix where it's really close to the sun and it's like, oh, whoa, it might be at home here. So I think even though Saturn usually brings on, there's really like usually challenging lessons that comes with Saturn or something like, just heaviness sometimes or whatever. And perhaps when it's in this position, would that maybe perhaps allow that to be inverted? And so that it could bring an opportunity to transmute some of these energies in a really positive way. And that because Saturn would be comfortable here, it would open up a better opportunity for us as individuals to kind of work with some of the lessons that Saturn might have. These are just things I'm riffing. It's totally just what all came to me when I was researching this. And there was something else that I read that this time for Saturn is not for the faint of heart, because it's such a powerful time to like reboot and restart things, and work through personal problems. The first thing that comes to mind for me always with this is boundaries. So it could be a really, really, really great time to just check in with your boundaries, check in with the boundaries you have for yourself, the people around you, and all of this stuff that Saturn really wants us to look at. And for me personally, actually, boundaries have been the thing that came up for me over the weekend. And I realized when I learned about this whole event with Saturn, I was like, whoa, that lines up so perfectly. So anyway, if anyone in the chat also has anything, and if anyone's just joining now, Kaylee has not Kaylee's not here, unfortunately. I'm not sure what happened, but I'm sure I'll get a chance to figure out what happened with her after the show. So anyway, yeah, that's why it's just me, and I'm kind of just spitballing on this Kazemi Saturn Kazemi event. So one of the other things that I thought about, because astrology can be looked at in a few ways, right? And I think that it all depends on the individual that's practicing this craft. I like to look at this as a way to further understand the self and to really understand who we really are. And one of the things I also was going to bring up with Kaylee was that anytime that I've sat down with my own personal chart and like gone through it and looked through books and looked online and like looked at the signs and try to figure out what's going on with squares and conjunctions and stuff. Every time that I've done this, the thing that comes to me is that the birth chart is a chart of choices. And you have a choice because it's almost like you can see the positive and the negative, either quality that you might have or tendency you might have. And you literally have the option to either work through those challenges where you see like a challenging area that might be there. You have the option to either work with it, or you have the option to kind of like maybe like sit in it. And sometimes I've seen other people, not even to mention any names because I don't have any names that come to mind at all, but I've seen people use astrology or conjunctions or the way the stars are placed in the sky as an excuse to continue bad behavior. And I don't think that's how astrology wants to be used. Just like with the tarot, I think, is like more of something, it's like a gateway to help you understand symbols in your life and the universe, and then apply it to your life. And I think that astrology kind of works the same way. And so I always try and keep that in my mind when I think about this kind of stuff, because I could see in my charts like where my challenges were, and then I could see how I maybe was able to make the choice to transmute that stuff and turn it into a positive instead of having it be something that holds me back and just being like, oh well, my such and such is here, so I'll just never be able to do that. I don't think that that's how life works. Just the way how like a doctor will tell you, "Oh, you have this certain ailment, you're doomed, there's nothing you can do." I don't think that I just think that we have way more options in this world and in this life, and with ourselves, that we can make this energy work for us. And so yeah, that is where a lot of my thoughts go with this. So man, was I excited to talk to her. But I'm stoked that you guys are all here. It's really exciting to see you guys. And thanks for the support, in understanding that I'm totally just going on and doing my own little monologue here. And I hope you guys have some just nice plans tonight. I mean, Valentine's Day is always such a trip too, because it's always like, okay, was it created by Hallmark? Is it actually, a real thing? But I think it's real in the sense that love is real, and that we have, it's always a beautiful thing to just kind of stop and acknowledge the things and the people that we love in our lives. And so it's cool, regardless if Hallmark created it or if it's a superficial holiday to some people. I still honor it because I just think it's beautiful to be able to do that. And it gives you an opportunity to, set aside time for some people who are special to you, and just to let them know, hey, I love you guys and I love you guys. So thank you so much for being here. And actually, I gotta say, I actually kind of like doing an earlier stream because I'm a morning person, even though I typically go live at 4 o'clock. And 4 o'clock's not that late, but I'm just a morning gal. So I'm usually up and at 'em and doing stuff. And sometimes when there's stuff like later on in the day, I'll feel like you can feel like, "Oh, I'm waiting for it, waiting for it, waiting for it." So it's just kind of cool to just like kind of pop in and do this. And yeah, Mario said he would join me right now. He just texted me. So if you guys are into that, if you guys want to hang out for a little while, Mario can riff. And we can talk Saturn and astrology, and we'll have a little Valentine's Day couple celebration here with y'all. So I think he's gonna join. So that's cool. So if you guys want to hang out, and we can talk and riff. Yeah, so Chance, you're hanging out, and dude, you guys had a great interverse last night. I was so stoked to see all three of you guys talk, and I think that there's so much opportunity for all these different ways of looking at the universe to come together and freaking like just get down to the nitty gritty. It was really cool, and I'm super stoked that all three of you guys were talking, and I can see in my mind's eye that there's going to be some really cool kinship that is created through that, because all three of you guys are so prolific and just intelligent and have so many great thoughts. So it's really cool to see that, and I was really happy that you guys went live and everything. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, so Mario's probably hot spotting, so we'll see how it goes. And Baldy just showed up. What's up, dude? I don't have a guest. Kaylee didn't come on. I'm not sure. I just hope she's okay. Honestly, I'm sure she is. But yeah, we're gonna riff, and Mario's gonna pop in, and we're just gonna we'll talk about whatever comes up. But yeah, now I'm gonna kind of go through my oh, you know what I liked? Kazimi. Am I saying it right? I know, Chance, you told me how to say it, but it means heart, in the heart of the sun. And one of the things that Mario brought up was, well, like in older traditions, in certain traditions, Saturn was the sun. So for an event like this, where the planet of Saturn is closest to the sun, what would that have meant when Saturn was the sun? So was this actually always an event? Or is this more of a modern day? Is this more of a modern sort of thing that's going on? I'm not sure. And then Kelly Anna is asking, Michelle, do you follow tropical or sidereal? I'm more of a tropical gal because I don't really, I honor sidereal, and that there could be definitely something going on with the 13th sign, because the number 13 is really significant in all sorts of systems. But because I was kind of like introduced through a tropical lens, it's where I've kind of stayed, but I'm not opposed to it. Well, what about you? What do you like to look into? Tropical or sidereal? And here is our man Mario.
Hey, baby.
What's up?
Oh, not much. Hanging out.
Yep.
Wasn't
Yeah.
expecting to go live, but it's all good. And it's Valentine's Day, so it almost kind of makes sense that we have this, like, couples episode or something.
Yeah, might as well go for it. We've talked about doing something like that.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
And
Yeah,
we
let's
can
just
go
hang
for as
for a
long
bit.
as we want. Yeah, we don't
Oh,
have to
totally.
go the whole 2 hours or whatever.
We should do like
But
I don't know, maybe if people have suggestions. I've seen a few suggestions. If there's something you want to talk about more than anything else, let me know. But yeah, last night was fun with Chance and Dylan. I got a little bit of a buzz from that, and so I stayed up pretty late. And so this is what Mario looks like when he stays up late.
still looks
Which
good to me.
I'm doing less and less of that these days. But yeah, I just had all sorts of things just I was thinking about, and I was motivated to do just kind of make some progress on a stream that I'm doing this Friday and all of that. But anyway, I am happy to be here, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone in the chat.
Yes, totally.
So, yeah.
Well, I think we should riff. Some people are wanting to talk about like maybe herbs for Valentine's Day or love. Binaby brought up Damiano, which is a great one. But I kind of want to
Mhm.
follow the Saturn weave a little bit, just because you and
Okay.
I really like Saturn. And then I did bring up the Saturn previously maybe being the sun, and then Chance threw in that Saturn, the planet, was not the sun. The name Saturn was attributed to our current sun in a previous era.
Mhm.
So I think like maybe we go off of that, because this whole Kazimi event is what,
Mhm.
is happening, which I can't even speak on like entirely, because I don't know a bunch about it, just a little bit from the research I did. So anyway, what do you think about it?
I don't know anything about that specifically, but obviously we can talk Saturn and what Saturn represents and everything else. Um, yeah, so the it's a symbolic sort of thing, I would say, regarding Saturn being the older sun, and I'm not saying that, and I don't even think, babe, you probably said that that's like exactly what you believe, but that there's traditions that think that, right?
Yes, yes, that's all I was
Yeah.
saying. I don't yeah, totally.
This is more of like an electric universe, Immanuel Velikovsky sort of perspective that Saturn was the old sun. And so I also think too that there's room for interpretation, thinking that perhaps, I don't know if things exactly work this way, that Saturn may have been the old or original pole star. So making no claims that, yeah, Saturn was the old sun, but there is a symbolic overlap with that. Even too, just interestingly enough, I mean, you look at the glyph for the sun, it's a dot with a circle around it. And then you look at Saturn from the top down perspective, it's the rings of Saturn with a circle in the middle. And so to me, there is an interesting sort of like symbolic theme between Saturn and the sun, regardless if it's just obviously allegorical versus literal. There's no way we could literally say that Saturn was the old sun, but there are people who have that speculation and have done kind of work around that or whatever. So I totally am in favor of people not being on board with that one for sure. We actually, it's funny. I think we talk about it more maybe than other people, because we had a friend, Bud, really interesting older guy. I brought him up multiple times, I guess over the last couple of years. But he was really into that information. And so he was all about Immanuel Velikovsky, worlds in collision type stuff and all of that. And so he would talk about this kind of on a regular basis. And funny enough, we actually had a relationship pretty much. I mean, it was based around a few things, but we really bonded over Saturn. Actually, that was one of the things that we kind of like, would talk about. And so I have a scythe, and so he noticed the scythe, and I remember him pointing out the scythe, and he said, "Oh, Saturn." And then the first time I went to his apartment, he had like Pan statues and lots of Saturnian things in his place. So I don't know. We just have a friend in person where that was kind of his deal. Not saying I completely subscribe to it, but uh he would mention that frequently. So he would also say a lot of other things like redheads are from Mars and whatever. So do I think redheads are from Mars? No, but it's kind of funny to think about. And who knows, maybe even symbolically there's something to that.
Well, yeah, and you did a beautiful photo shoot with Bud with that scythe because I think it inspired him to want to like have it around for the photo shoot and everything.
Right. Totally,
Yeah.
totally. But yeah, even us too, we've bonded over Saturn. Michelle being a Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, and then I've always just had, I guess, darker sensibilities, and kind of having my Saturn returns. That's when I really got into Saturn, actually, and I didn't even realize that was a thing until I was like several months into researching Saturn, and I was just getting into it. And I'm like, what is like, I was starting to wrap my head around the various myths of Saturn and like the artwork of Saturn and things like that. And then literally several months into doing that research, I realized, oh, I'm going through my Saturn returns. That is fascinating. So Saturn is an ally, I would say.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about it, and I've always been attracted to it. I mean, I got really attracted to it because once we started talking about it, but as a Capricorn, knowing that was the ruling planet and all that stuff. But I think it's allowed me to, go into these darker spaces, to not be afraid to look into my darker spaces. Even though
Mm-hmm.
there were times in my life where I was afraid to look there or I was embarrassed to look there or whatever, but I think that underlying Saturnian energy has always helped me to kind of just like be okay with the fact that there's darkness and there's also light, but that to not be afraid to look or walk into the darkness. And I also think too that it's helped me just as more of an earthy individual, someone who's very physical. I like to work with my hands. I like to just do things. I'm always kind of making something or creating something, whether it be food or medicine or gardens or whatever it is. I think that Saturn is with me at all times when I'm doing that work, and Saturn's with everybody at all times when they're doing that work. So that's one of the things that I connect with it. on a deep level anyway.
And I just have to say too, Michelle is she is such a practical person, if you guys can't tell. She's extremely practical, and she is very much grounded, and we complement each other so nicely this way. But she's also, she's an earth sign, and earth signs aren't known for being incredibly quick. And so earth is the slowest elements of the four elements. And Michelle is that kind of person. Not saying that she's slow, but it takes you a second to kind of like get used to an idea or to pick something up. But then it's like once you have it, you like have it. It's like a skill that you've like learned, and then you can do it really, really well. But in terms of being like malleable or flexible or something, that's more of my sort of thing that we've learned over time, is that I'm way more like that. I'm way more emotional. I feel like kind of in a lot of ways, I'm just way more watery, and you're just way earthier, and I know that's just kind of the traditional correspondence with our signs or whatever, but it totally is true with the both of us. And so she's brought a lot of stability to my life. She's grounded me quite a bit, I would say, so it's been an awesome sort of thing where we just kind of realized that we really fit nicely like that, like puzzle pieces. And so it's awesome, and I'm grateful for it. But it completely just lines up with Capricornian Saturnian thing for sure.
Yeah, thanks,
Through and
Bob.
through.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes that Saturn is I've had to work hard to not allow it to be too heavy on me, because I could have a tendency to kind of just allow the darker things to kind of allow me to spiral, or I'll be more negative, or that heaviness can sometimes be a challenge. And that's one of the things that I wanted to, go into talk about with Kaylee, was how, yeah, this chart of choice, these choices we have within our own cosmology are very important to remember, that you shouldn't use these sometimes heavier or darker aspects of your life as an excuse to not complete tasks or not do something or what have you. And so to be able to kind of be on the other side of having that Saturnian lesson, those challenges that are constantly there, it feels really good. And you, as the water sign, more malleable, and things like, the softness of that, and the more emotional side has helped me to soften, because a lot of times I can be too rigid, or I want to have something structured and need it to be a certain way in order for me to feel comfortable. And you've taught me that it's not necessarily always the case, and that sometimes you have to just go with the flow, go with the current, and allow things to happen. And when you do that, a lot of times, it usually always just works out anyway, regardless. But yeah.
Right. I think might as well we should just be very open and honest here. I think that's always kind of the best policy regardless, but just given this opportunity, I think that it's a good idea to do that. But just kind of saying too, because obviously I go on streams and I have my stuff going on, you have your stuff going on. But one of the great things that we've kind of learned about each other too, and why I think we fit, and this is such a Valentine's Day thing. Oh my God. But just, I'm a man, but I've embraced a lot of my feminine qualities, the emotional side of things, and receptivity, and things like that. And, I like tarot and everything. And then you're a woman, but you've embraced a lot of your masculine qualities, and so you growing up, you hung out, you tended to have more friends who were men. And then I grew up and I tended to have more friends who were women. So I've always felt more comfortable around women, like my whole entire life, So when there were family gatherings, which there are many family gatherings in my family, and they're often the vast majority of the time, especially for holidays, are huge. I felt myself being way more comfortable being around my aunts and stuff, kind of indoors or in the kitchen, and kind of just like seeing what they're up to. And then it's kind of customary for all the men, obviously, just to be kind of like outside around the barbecue, whatever. But I've always identified with the women in my life. I grew up with two sisters and a mother and a father. And so I feel like I kind of got used to that energy, and I appreciated it, and I kind of saw it for what it was early on. And so I just think it's really interesting that we would even find each other, kind of given that we have a similar thing going on, but it's like completely reversed. So vice versa for you, you always prefer to hang out with men over women, and you prefer their company and their conversation more. So I just think that's kind of like an interesting sort of contrast there with everything. But it makes perfect sense that we would find each other that way.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, there's many women that I love in my life too and have gotten to have great friendships with and to this day still. But yeah, you're right. I always have felt more comfortable and I'm always more comfortable around the barbecue and around the fire. And not to say women can't be,
Of
but
course, yeah.
at it when I was younger though, it was hard for me. It was hard. That was part of one of my challenges, and even as I got older, it was still always a little bit of a struggle for me because then there sometimes did feel like there was a bit of a void because I felt like I didn't have many women that I connected to on a deep level. And yeah, but I just realized that that's just like who I am and that's okay. Instead of like fighting it and, acting like it's not okay or whatever and being ashamed of it or whatever. Yeah, learning to just know that that's just who I am. And actually, I mean, the more I lean into it, the better I feel and the more I feel like myself, which means then the more I can just like bring the gifts I have to the world, just like with all of us. So when we all lean
Right.
into where our comfort zone, where are we really comfortable? What is it that we're here to do? Dude, that's when it gets good.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. Um, so I just have to say, because it's Valentine's Day and we can circle back to Saturn or whatever, but I see here false reality check at some point. There's a little heart there, which is very
Nice.
appropriate. It's probably not the first heart in the chat for today. But regarding heart symbolism, because we talked about the heart already today, just very briefly,
Mhm.
because obviously it's Valentine's Day. But one of the things I just want to point out with the heart, if you guys aren't aware, but the way I tend to see heart symbolism is that it's the monad splitting away from itself and then also returning to itself. And so that's what you see, the pinch, the middle part of a heart, it splits off the monad and then it comes back around and then it meets again at the bottom tip. And so the heart symbolically represents the singular breaking off and becoming dual, only to return back to itself. And that's kind of what relationships are all about. And I think that's what a lot of gender symbolism pretty much like breaks down to. It's like you're finding your other half, you're finding your complement, and so what was it? I can't remember who quoted it, but it's something. There's a quote. It might even be a Crowley quote, to be honest, but something along the lines of like, um, separation. It's something about separation for the sake of unification, essentially. And I think that's definitely what the heart symbol represents. It's a separation for the opportunity for a unification to happen, for a union, and I think that's kind of what is going on here anyway, and I think that's maybe what the heart of polarity or duality really is there's a central source, there's a central seed, there's a sacred center that was broken off and was split, and maybe this was split into a positive and a negative, or active and a passive, or a masculine and a feminine, or a black and a white. But these elements, this duality, this polarity came from a central source. The source is from the monad, or from the one. And I think a lot of the symbolism actually is encoded in Gemini. So Gemini is ruled by Mercury, and so a lot of Gemini, I just talked about this last night, but a lot of Gemini stories, the hero twin myths, it has to do with the twins being born from a cosmic egg. It's really interesting. So even notice that like Hermes oftentimes has like a helmet that looks very egg shaped, and even the yarmulke looks very egg shaped. And so there's this idea that the egg contains the duality in and of itself, the polarity of positive and negative in and of itself. And so for hero twins to be born from a cosmic egg, I think is really, really interesting. But I think the heart kind of symbolizes what I'm saying. The one splitting but then returning to itself, essentially. And so when the Gemini twins come together, it's almost like they were they were together to begin with. They were together in the cosmic egg to begin with. And then there's this separation that happens. So there's a light twin and a dark twin, a good twin and an evil twin. And then they come together again. And then when they come together, it's fireworks. There's a lot of energy that's exchanged between these two figures. And so a lot of times this energy comes to a head as well. And so the dark twin will kill the good twin. So to me, this says a lot about just kind of how relationships work anyway, is that when there's two people coming together, there's going to be some sort of spark, or there's going to be some sort of friction, and this friction is can generate all sorts of new potentials and possibilities and everything else, but it also can come to a head and potentially be detrimental. So this is kind of the friction that's built into every single relationship. Either you guys are going to like it, and then there's riffing back and forth, and then you guys are coming up with new ideas, or you guys are building something, or you realize that this person actually rubs me the wrong way. And so the twins of Gemini, those two pillars or vertical lines, you can look at them like fire sticks. And so that's what the Aztecs believe, that when you saw Gemini in the night sky, the Castor and Pollux, the two main stars of Gemini, that you were looking at fire sticks. And these fire sticks, what do fire sticks do? How do they work? They rub against each other, and so they create friction. What is sex all about? It's all about friction. And so friction is a beautiful thing. It brings about life, but also it can be destructive as well. And so it makes sense, kind of given all of that, that Gemini also corresponds with the Lover's card. And so that's what the Lover's card is pretty much all about. These two energies coming together, or there being this heat or fire or spark between the two. And so anyways, that all kind of spawned off from heart symbolism, but I think you guys kind of see what I'm saying there.
No, I love that, because I love thinking about the whole dynamic with a relationship, that obviously when you come together with someone, as you said, there's a spark, there's this excitement, you do kind of create like a oneness with the two. But what's so important in relationships of all kinds is to remember the individuation of both people, and to respect that and to honor it in your own way for yourself and the other person. Because if you don't, and it becomes too much of this, like, oh, we're one now and this and that, which you are in a way, but you're always yourself, and you always have to have the personal responsibility that comes along with that. And so I think that it can kind of in mainstream, kind of like bubblegum pop Hollywood kind of crap, it's looked at more of like, oh no, like it was, we are one and that's it and whatever. And so anyway, that's what I always try and keep in mind, because it's so important. Because if you lose that, then the relationship suffers, not only with the other person, but it suffers with yourself as well. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
No, exactly. I love, this is hilarious. So that's not Crowley, that's from Justin Bieber's Hold On. That's really funny.
Oh my God, I know. What the
That's
heck?
hilarious. And then he said, it's absolutely true. Mario borrows stuff from Bieber all the time and doesn't realize I'm trying to educate him. Dude, that's great.
Nice. Dude. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Nice, Baldy. Definitely important to know which great philosopher you borrow from. Nice. Dude, this is great. Thank you guys for hanging out. We're totally winging it here.
And just another thing with the heart as well, it's very much toroidal, right? And so this idea of the one splitting from itself only to return back to itself is exactly like the torus field. So it's the central part of the torus field, the hyperbola area, the what I refer to as the sacred center, and then it splits off. If you're looking at like the cross section of a basic torus field, it splits off, it goes up, and then it returns back to itself. And so to me, I think that that's kind of what you're seeing. And then also the heart too, even just like the top of a heart looks like an Aries symbol as well. I think that's what Aries represents too. It's the singular being expressed like a sprout, and then it's splitting off from itself. That's what the seed is all about too. It's just this concentrated, sort of procreative kind of egg-like thing, this point that, splits from itself. So I think that's what you see with the Aries symbol, with the sprout, with the top of a heart, with the Taurus field. I tend to see the same thing. So I just wanted to express that there. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging and just like being down to chill.
Well, the other thing too, about the heart, and I don't remember the guy who we learned this from. Oh, nice. Remember when we learned about the heart being a toroid and it's actually like a tube and it's not a pump? It's like not a pump system, like we're like
Oh, the heart is not a pump.
mainstream.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is what I always think of. So like when we're looking at a heart, it is a toroid and it creates this toroidal shape and it has all of these aspects that you're talking about, but that actually in reality it actually is more of a toroid in its own right.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll just say that if you guys have not looked into that, I haven't spent any time recently going down that rabbit hole. But if you just Google or YouTube, um, "heart is not a pump," it'll send you down this little rabbit hole regarding the heart not working the way that we've been told it works. With mainstream science and everything, and that the heart itself, it's electric for one. And then my understanding too is that this kind of really fits nicely with some Saturnian stuff, but it's electric and actually it is toroidal in nature, but it's actually kind of like it's a tube that's wrapped into itself essentially, and so you can actually unfold a heart, and I've seen that. I've seen video of that, of a dried heart, and it's completely unfolded, and it's actually was a tube, and that's what a torus is. A torus is a tube basically. And so if you look at like really basic sea creatures, they kind of just look like long tubes. It's almost like, I can't remember what they call it, the sea cucumber, I think. It's like a long tube, and it's like there's just a mouth, and then there's an ass, and then that's it. And so things go in, and then they get processed, and then things go out. That's what we are too. Things go in, it gets processed, and then things come out. And so I think a lot of things are toroidal in nature. Things that have an input and an output, are kind of toroidal based. And so the heart, I believe, is pretty much doing the same thing, where it actually kind of looks like either a tube or like a rope, and then over time it actually wraps around itself. So it gives the illusion of being something that it's kind of, it's a more complicated version of a tube, because there's kind of this knot sort of thing going on, and the knot is actually a perfect metaphor. That's why they say that they can, you can be pulled by your heart. Right? So the heart string metaphor makes a lot of sense, with the heart actually not being a pump. It's more of a fibrous sort of rope like, tube like, toroidal sort of thing actually. But yeah, what was I going to say about that? Oh, when I was doing research about the heart not being a pump, one of the things that was said was that it's actually the restriction part of the heart. It's the thing that actually compresses the heart that like allows the whole entire system to work. And so when I was researching this, I thought that was really interesting, because I'm like, wow, that reminds me a lot of just the power of Saturn, and how Saturn is the furthest planet out under the traditional system. And there is this compression sort of thing. There's this like tightening sort of thing. And, I think that is the power potentially of like the universe. So as an example, we are taught about evolution, in school. We're taught about the Big Bang in school. So this is the idea that was a central whatever, all of the elements in like the universe were compressed, and then it exploded, and that the universe continues just to expand, right? This fits in line with evolution, but there's a concept called involution, the idea that the universe actually was involved and not evolved, that it actually went into itself, which is a very Saturnian concept, which I think is really interesting. So it kind of reminds me of like the myth of Sophia, and a lot of Virgo symbolism, where there's like a light deep within the darkness of their being or of their essence or whatever. So that Sophia or Virgo went within herself, that the primordial universe potentially was feminine, and she went within herself to create the masculine. This is total Saturn stuff, in my opinion. Saturn is that restrictive nature. Saturn is kind of like, it's related to like, I think you can kind of relate it to, in a way, like whole symbolism, or this very, what am I trying to say? Um, the energy that kind of goes within, because if Saturn is at the end of the line, traditionally, everything is within those parameters. If Saturn governs boundaries, it keeps things within. There's a restrictive sort of thing kind of going on there. So when I heard that the heart, that the actual, compression part of it was the most important part, I thought that was really interesting. And it made me think about all these other things that, I've thought about with Saturn. So pressure, restriction, compression, it might be one of like, it's a really big deal. Basically, we need it. We need the expansion and we need the compression. And so the compression would be Saturn, and I would say that Jupiter would be kind of like the expansion sort of thing. So that's generally how I tend to look at it, at least. And obviously, we're just riffing here, and I wasn't even planning on being online or whatever. I don't have any notes or whatever, so I'm just kind of spitballing.
No,
But those
it's
are some of the
beautiful.
things that it makes me think about.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I can you look up the guy's name who has this concept? Because remember, he has like a total, he's worked out like the mathematics of it and everything. And it's the way he presents this argument that the heart is not a pump. It's actually really hard to deny once you look at the way that this guy laid everything out. I don't, because I cannot remember his name, because we learned
I
this
don't.
probably like 4 or 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either. So Davin asks, "Why does it pump so hard when I work out?" Well, the deal is that mechanically, a pump works differently than what the heart actually is. And so, like I said, there's an electrical toroidal element to the heart that is not really discussed. Oh, there you go.
There. Thank you,
Oh yeah,
Brendan. So Dr. Tom Cohen.
right,
Cowan.
right.
Might be Cowan, like a cow.
But
Anyway, yeah, brilliant.
everything else doesn't work the way we've been told. So it kind of makes sense that this would be another example of that, and that the medical establishment, the way they look at a heart, they understand certain aspects of it, obviously, but this seems to make a lot more sense. And that also to, the fibers of the heart, or the strings of the heart, they can get loosened. And then that knot of the heart is actually, it's not ideal, so I think a lot of heart conditions, from what I understand, guys, I'm more of like a tarot symbologist guy, but obviously I go down these rabbit holes too. But from my understanding, that the actual like fabric that is the heart, those muscles, that they can kind of loosen, and then the knot of the heart actually is just not what it used to be. So I think that that's kind of what happens with certain heart conditions and whatnot. But yeah, Tom Cohen, for sure. That rings a bell now that I think about it. Yes,
Well, and then
exactly.
oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Implosion. Yeah, exactly.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just gonna, whatever.
Yeah,
Let's
go
just
for
go
it.
there.
Just yeah, do it.
So my what I think, dude, and what's up, Nomad? But what I think, and this may be overly simplifying the case, but heliocentrism promotes explosions. It promotes explosions, it promotes expansions, it promotes projections, it promotes everything external. It promotes that kind of energy. Um, my opinion, geocentrism promotes implosions, or going within, involution. It promotes all of these things going, returning back to the sacred center. I think you can see like a definite through line between heliocentrism and this explosive evolution sort of concept, and geocentrism, and actually the exact opposite, which would be involution and kind of going within towards your sacred pole. And I'll just say this too. This has been on my mind lately, regarding polar symbolism and the sacred center and all this other stuff. Guys, I think that the pole symbolically um, represents what its function is. And so that is to say that it brings order. And so that's why I love the polar tradition, is because it actually makes more sense. And in my opinion, I feel like it's more holistic and it brings order. And that is exactly what the world axis is said to bring as well. It brings order, that it gives you a framework. It gives you something to kind of like revolve around. And so that's how I tend to interpret it, is that the pole brings order, the world axis brings order to the universe. It's separated the primordial universe so that we actually have a space for the elements to play and for things to happen, for us to be little alchemists and wizards and magicians and stuff like that, so we can play with the elements. And so I think that the pole symbolically, it represents exactly what it's believed to have done, in this reality, in this domain. And so I think that what has happened is that I think that we were, or people were at one point, more polar centric, as in the north sky and northern portion of Earth, understanding that whole entire dynamic. And it parallels nicely with a lot of the things that I'm reading. I'm not saying that this is exactly where I'm at 100%, but there's a lot of material that you can read regarding the idea that the cradle of civilization first came from the North Pole. There are multiple groups who think this, from like, there's a polar tradition in the Persian culture. There's a polar tradition with the Vedics and the Indians. There's a polar tradition with some Europeans. There's a polar tradition with some indigenous natives who are more northern in nature. And so some of these groups basically say that we came from the North Pole and then we had to migrate after a pole shift or some sort of catastrophe or whatever. And so I think that this might even be a metaphor for the pole having this sort of like focus, and then we moved away from it the same way people maybe had away from the pole itself. There's this idea that the North Pole was the Garden of Eden and it was paradise, and that the climate was really, it was ideal, year round, and so you can grow lots of food and all of these different types of things, that it was really where you want it to be. And so I think maybe, I just think it's interesting that symbolically that polar symbolism, the polar tradition, was a focus, and then we've kind of moved away from that. And so this is kind of the transition that I'm interested in, is the moving away from this central sort of northern polar concept. And so I just think it's interesting that there are groups who say that, and that it kind of lines up nicely with the symbolism that I've been looking into. Nice. Thank you, man. Dude, it's awesome to see Benjamin here. I am stoked for you guys to talk next week. That's going to be a banger.
Oh, yeah, me too.
I
Yeah,
know you are. Yeah.
I'm so pumped, Ben. Oh my goodness. I just want to talk to you all the time. But if I can have you for a couple hours, yeah, next week, and we can just chat it
Yeah.
up. It's going to be
She's
awesome.
gonna say it, you know what I mean? But you are one of her, if not the absolute favorite in her lineup of just people that she respects and looks up to, and consumes their content. So she's very excited.
Yeah, and I
You
got to
both are.
say too, your conversation with James of Grounded Extracts last week, you guys, it was so great. It was really inspiring. And I loved how you brought up the concept of the three different minds.
Yeah.
And you have I've got so much stuff that I want to bring up to you about that, because I loved how you brought that up, and I just loved how you guys riffed. And I'm on the same page with so many of the things that you guys were talking about. So super, super, super cool. Very exciting. So yeah, this is man, this is fun. So
Yeah.
cool.
Just
Yeah,
real
let's go
quick.
through the chat and see, because there's a lot of really great nuggets coming through here.
He says, heart's tiny in volume compared to the force required to move a viscous fluid like the blood. It's much more of a magnetic propulsion of sorts. Exactly. And not a mechanical pump. Got to bounce. Enjoy your day. Thanks, dude. Yeah, that's my understanding too. And that there is something about the way the blood is, I don't even know the right terminology, the way the blood is treated, they found that it actually it like moves more smoothly than you would think if it's just an average fluid or something. But I know somehow the blood is activated, and I know that there's a pressure sort of dynamic thing, um, or a vacuum that's kind of created to allow the blood to move as quickly as it does too. But something you said in there kind of reminded me of that. But again, definitely not an expert here. You guys should look into it.
Well, the other thing too, it makes me think of the holographic blood concept, which I'm still learning. And I mean, I know the very surface level of what that goes on, but the fact that like our blood holds memory, our blood holds these injuries, whether it be a physical injury or I think it's mostly physical, but you can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So like, because scar tissue is a big deal with the holographic blood, and that disease can
Mm,
sometimes stem from a place of scar tissue where there was injury, which is interesting because obviously the blood goes to the place where it needs healing, and sometimes scar tissue, it gets so fibrous and it's hard to get into. So it kind of makes sense to me that it could be an area where actual blood can't flow as easily, so there could be stagnation there and all of these things. And so that's just what comes to mind when you're thinking about that.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Rachel, cool. So she says, I was thinking of offering holographic blood for a twilight reading hour, though there are lots of images that are vital. That's true. There are lots of images in that book, but that would be so awesome. That would be so cool. And if anybody hasn't checked out Rachel's twilight reading hour of now I'm blanking on the name, Northern Mysteries, it's right here. She sent me a copy, sweetie. Northern Mysteries and
That's awesome.
Magic. I am loving this. Oh my God. I just am like on chapter 2 and I'm just freaking loving it. And I love how she goes into her story of how she came across, just her journey through, all the esoteric occult magic stuff, which led her to the runes. And it's really cool. So digging it. And she's, I don't know what chapter she's on, but I think she's pretty far into the book, but she's on Telegram doing that.
And I thought it was really synchronistic. So Michelle started reading that book because Rachel sent it to her. And she was telling me about kind of her origin story, about how she was right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but she was more of like a Western occultist type person and was joining mystery schools and whatnot. But then over time, she realized that really the Northern Mysteries, that's where her heart really was. And that's kind of her true calling, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Freya.
It wasn't until she saw the runes and she went to see a woman that was associated with one of the groups that she was working with, and she had clay runes that were like laid out. She asked her to put them out lay them out into a circle. And she said as soon as she saw the runes and held them, she just had this deep resonance with them of knowing like, oh, whoa, I need to look into this. And then that was the catalyst for her to ask the question of, well, what are the gods of my tradition? What are the traditions of my people? And I think that is one of the most important question anyone can ask, because in today's age, we have all this, grabbing for all the exotic things that are away or maybe not close to us in order to find ourselves, when you find yourself in yourself, and yourself is your ancestors and the people that came before you and the traditions that they held. And so it just was really cool to hear her origin story on that. And I have to shout out Family Fungi to Elise. After Rachel and I's episode, she reached out and was just talking about how she's always wanted to learn about the runes and all of that stuff. And so that our episode inspired her to kind of, pick up that line. And then she was just gifted that same book just a couple days ago, and she let me know. So it's cool. They're coming through for people, and that's what they do. And there's so much wisdom there, and they've been hidden on purpose. For whatever reasons, we don't have to get into all the details of why they're hidden and why they're kind of demonized or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's really valuable.
Well, I mean, there has to be something along the lines of I believe that they were probably demonized because they're more clearly Northern inspired, and so
Oh
I think
yes.
that there has been kind of a campaign against some of the symbolism that I like to get into and talk about, and so this kind of lines up with that for sure. But it was cool because you told me about her story, and I thought that was really interesting. And then I started reading a book called Beyond the North Wind by Christopher McIntosh, I believe is his name. And in the foreword, the guy is talking about being a Western occultist, getting into various mystery schools and lodges and things like that, studying Crowley and studying, whatever, all of these different guys, Kenneth Grant and whatever, and getting into that tradition. And then eventually, finding the Northern Mysteries and finding some of those things that he got really, really interested in. And him saying that that's what kind of woke him up to a lot of this information. And then he shouted out in the book Freya, from the book you just mentioned. And so it's just kind of curious that you're reading her right now, told me about her story. This guy who wrote the forward has a similar story and then actually knows who she is. So I'm sure it's a small community once you really get into it.
No, definitely. But for whatever reason, it's coming through in the weave, and it's pretty cool just to see people get excited about it. So
Yeah. And then Chance, yeah, absolutely. Dylan mentioned that last night, how certain alphabets can awaken something in certain people. Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's really interesting. Did he? I meant to write it down, but he mentioned something along the lines, I believe, of various like mystery schools or kind of like initiation rites or whatever, where you have to write your own original alphabet. I believe that's what he said at one point, and I had never heard of that, but I think that is very, very intriguing. Which means that there's a lot of alphabets out there. So what a task too. It almost makes me want to do it myself and just see like, okay, if I came up with an alphabet, how many letters should it be? What should the system be? Things like that. It seems kind of like a cool exercise.
yeah, that's awesome. And then it makes me think of the book Magical Alphabets by Nigel Pennick.
Oh yeah.
That's a great book for anybody who I mean, he goes into the runes, but he also goes into, as the title states, magical languages kind of from all over the world. And that's a really good read for anybody who's wanted to dive more deeply into that.
Yeah, totally. I might pull it out just to give a shout out real quick to the book.
Yeah, sure. Totally. Well, man. So if anybody else has anything that they want to throw into the chat, questions, comments, or whatever. You guys have been great. There's been a lot of really awesome info coming through, good energies and everything else. So thanks for hanging in with us while we pivot. Yes, everything is okay with Kaylee. I heard from her. And so we'll try and reschedule in the future. To hash out our episode. But yeah, just so everybody knows, she is okay. And I'm glad she's okay. And things happen and it's cool. But yeah, grateful that Mario was available to even jump in and help me facilitate this conversation and go into anything further. So got some books. All right, cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned him, Nigel Pennick. So he has a book called Magical Alphabets. He's written so much stuff. I know we came across one when we were in LA and we went to like this witchy occult shop sort of thing. And I bought one of his books. Since then, I found out that he's actually a very prolific guy, but he gets into just the concept of magical alphabets. And he literally has sections for Hebrew, Greek, the runes, the Celtic Ogham and Bardic alphabet, magical and alchemical alphabets. And he goes through them all. And he basically offers, just some correspondence information and mythological information about the different alphabets. And I like his style personally. But the first book I got from him is called The Book of Primal Signs. So here it is, The High Magic of Symbols. And he just gets into a lot of symbolism. So right here, he has a chapter on the runes. He has a chapter or he's talking about the swastika, the sun wheel or wheel, and, the Ankh and things like that. And so I remember picking this up years ago and being into it and liking it and stuff. And so he's kind of a good resource. And I think I'll probably pick up something else of his down the road. But I think in particular, the magical alphabets one, I think it's a really cool concept for a book. So maybe some of you guys might be into that.
Nice. So how you feeling, babe? You want to keep going? Or
It's up
do you
to you.
want you want to scan through the chat one more time, or how you feeling? Because I
Hey,
know that.
hey, it's your show. You're the host at the most, so
Well, thank you. I mean, I feel kind of like if we have closing thoughts, I do have some announcements for people that I would have played at the end of my 2 hour mark. So yeah, if you have anything else you wanted to throw out for people, we can do that, and then we can just kind of maybe wrap it up.
right, right. You know what? Yeah, I'm glad I was able to pop in and I didn't have anything else going on right now. Thank you guys for the support and for the love. There are some brilliant people in the chat, so honestly, I just feel grateful that we know some of these people both in real life and online, and hopefully we can connect with some of these other people that we've never met, in person sometime. So nothing but love and respect to you guys.
So Ben says, please look up the story of the net and read it. Read it out loud. Read it
Oh, did
out.
he see that in the book?
Maybe. Oh, because you flipped through.
Oh, okay. I can do that. For
Sweet.
Balderson, absolutely. Anything he wants, man.
Let's do it.
Let's see. I might have to flip through this here because I'm not seeing just a straight net chapter, but I obviously he mentioned it somewhere, right? Even the he has a thing on the heart, so maybe on my
Okay.
way to the heart, I'll see if there's a net. So the
Okay.
heart is 95.
Yeah. Well, the page you opened to had the wheel symbol, the earth symbol. So I don't know if that helps you at all.
Right. I
But
mean
yeah.
this one, right? But that's not the net that he's
Oh, he
talking about.
says no. I've never seen that book, so I don't know. Then I don't know.
Oh, okay. We're totally
Never mind.
mistaken here then.
Oh, it's a Roman story about Cupid, Mars, and Venus.
Oh,
Gotcha.
gotcha. Okay, nice.
Okay. Sweet. Thank you, Ben.
Well, can do
Well,
either way.
well, then maybe read the section on the heart in honor of Love Day here.
Yeah, let me see if I can just find a nice potent sort of thing here. Okay,
Okay.
I have something highlighted from a while ago.
Yeah,
So let me
go
just
for
see
it.
what's going on here. Oh, interesting. So what I have highlighted here from probably years ago at this point, but it says English folk art sometimes uses the heart shape for pin cushions, with the pins ornamentally arranged. A heart shaped piece of cloth stuck with pins has been found among the contents of a witch bottle from Ipswich. It must be a town. Mummified hearts of cattle and pigs stuck with thorns or pins have been found as house deposits. Objects deliberately placed in the foundations, walls, or chimneys of houses in Cambridge, Dorset, London, and Somerset. Interesting. So, mummified hearts of cattle and pigs stuck with thorns or pins have been found as house deposits, like in the walls of the house. That's
Ah,
interesting.
interesting. Oh man. Well, oh man. I love the concept of the witch bottle. That is seriously some like really cool. That's a cool magical working
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder about the thorns into the heart. So it could mean a couple of things. Um, I always, when I think of thorns, though, I think of protection. But I know if you were doing something like putting thorns into a heart, are you trying to project something onto the heart that would be more malefic than that? I'm not sure, but
Right.
that's interesting. I like that.
This is interesting too. So the right. So basically, with each section, obviously, he has like little illustrations and drawings and stuff. But just kind of noticing the card suits here. Can you see that? And so basically, just noticing the difference between the heart and a spade, or some card suits aren't always depicted how we have it here with diamonds and spades and clubs and whatever, but this one here looks like it has an acorn and then some sort of ball. It almost kind of looks like a globus cruciger sort of thing, and then a heart, and then the spade. But just notice the similarity between the spade and the heart just kind of being
You,
flipped like that. It's kind of
if you
curious.
lift up the book a little bit, babe, because you can't see it. There you go. Now you can see it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely makes
gotcha,
sense.
gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
A
yeah.
Ace of spades, baby.
Yep. Cool. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you once again, and I'll let you wrap up the show, and I'll see you when you're done with that.
Yes, definitely. Family fungi, like with talismans, the intention while making the hearts would have influence, at least on the dwellers aware of their devotional act. Oh, interesting. That makes total sense to
Mm,
me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
like it.
totally, for sure.
Cool.
Alrighty, guys.
All right,
Until
Bob.
next
Thank you
time,
so much.
take care. Yeah,
This
you
was
got it.
awesome. All right. Thank
All right.
you.
See ya. Bye.
Bye bye. All righty, y'all. Well, that was fun. That was a random and pivot. I have to just say, I love Kaylee, but I had an inkling, I had a feeling in my gut that something. There was just something. I wasn't trying to even pin on what my hit was on it. There was just some feeling I had that there might be some delay, there might be something, whatever. But all in all, this was great, and I'm glad we all got to hang out for a second. So just go through a couple updates for y'all. Next week's show, as we talked about earlier, Benjamin Balderson will be here, and I'm super excited. So that will be on February 21st. We will be here at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, going live. So we're going to just riff. I know that Ben and I will be able to just talk about all sorts of stuff, but as I mentioned earlier, the three minds, that I love that subject. So we're going to go into that, and we'll be able to talk about all sorts of stuff. So I'd love to have you guys join us for that one next week at 4 p.m. Same place here at the Healing Home. Just another reminder that I do have a Patreon page now, that you can come and throw some support my way if you're wanting to. If you are wanting to support, but you're not interested in herbal remedies or, things like that, you can come and support me there on Patreon. Every single patron will have access to my last Thursday live stream, which will be a patron exclusive for the time being now. So during that live stream, it can be a Q&A. You can pick my brain. It'll be an opportunity for people to just like maybe hone in on something specific that they're wanting to know. I also have some presentations in mind that I'd like to bring to the last Thursday live stream. That one will be held on the 23rd of this month. That'll be the first one I'm doing. Patrons also get a chance to have access to my full moon offerings early. So I'll be announcing my full moon offering maybe like 3-4 days ahead of everybody else on my newsletter who is subscribed. They'll get it. And then you can be added to a wait list if you want to purchase the product before everybody else. So you'll just have early access to my full moon offering, which is pretty cool. I'm excited for all of that and to be able to just start the Patreon thing. I've been wanting to do it for years, and now is the time, baby. So full moon offering this month is horseradish fire cider. I'm very happy with this one. Three, I don't know why I just said three. Anyway, people have been reaching out, and people who have purchased it are really loving it. And so I'm happy to hear that feedback. If you like horseradish, you will like this. You have to like horseradish for this one because it is one of the main ingredients. And we grew the horseradish in our garden, and it was I love that plant and that root. It's so delicious and has so many great health benefits for us on many, many levels. I actually used this. I used the fire cider to make what did I put it in this week? I just made a salad dressing out of it, which was really great. And I like to just drink it straight, just shoot it back. But it's pretty glorious. And here is a menu of products for anyone who is interested. Oh, thank you guys. I'm glad you guys love the products. Thank you so much. Yeah, here's the menu of what I've got going on. So we have at the top here the horseradish fire cider. I just made a fresh batch of my CBD cannabis root and white willow bark salve. Wow, what a glorious thing. I just used it last night for myself, just put it all over and went to bed, and it's something special, and it sent me into a lovely dream time, just super deep relaxation. pain relief, all the things that we could talk about. I also just reposted a video that I made last year about cannabis root if people are wanting to learn more about how to work with it, because it's one of the parts of the cannabis plant that is sometimes overlooked, but it's really valuable. But one thing I just want to stress is that if you are going to use cannabis root, really try very hard to find cannabis that's been cultivated organically, and because sometimes cannabis has been used as like a plant that can like clean up soil and stuff. So you want to just make sure that however your plant was, wherever it was grown, whoever was doing it, whatever they were using, hopefully they weren't using much other than very natural things to mitigate certain things that can come up with cannabis. But just make sure that you're sourcing it from someone that you love and you trust on what they're how they're raising their plants, because that matters. Yeah, but that's a great salve that I just really love. And let's see, that's about it. I think those are the updates for me anyway. So as always, michelleshealinghome@gmail.com for questions, for orders. You can head to my website to find out what my offering is. I also offer consultations, which I'm really excited about. Text me too if that's more comfortable for you, 503-568-1569. And last but not least, Mario has a live stream next Friday with LC King. They're going to throw down on astrology and the polar tradition. So he doesn't have a set time for that one yet, but it will be live next Friday, which is this Friday. Yes, this Friday. Sorry, this Friday on the 17th, with LC King. And yeah, I think that's going to do it. And thank you, Grounded Extracts. I'm so glad you got your package. Yay, yay, yay. I'm really happy it all arrived safely. And that is our little thank you to you for sending us such a awesome, beautiful bounty of your creations as well. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for a little while. I hope you had some fun. I sure did. As I said earlier, I really liked starting earlier. Not saying I'm going to change my time in my live stream, but boy, as a morning person and as just somebody who is like, my energy is high in the morning. So that's really cool. Anyway, but next week at 4, we'll see you here. Me and Baldy will get into it, and I can't wait to hang out with more of y'all next time and have a really great love day, whether you celebrate it or not. Make sure you just honor the things and the people you love today. It's a good chance to do that, and just be grateful for the people you have in your life, who you love, as I'm grateful for all of you guys. And gosh, I'm just so excited to be sharing this information and have the opportunity to meet some of you guys and just riff and keep learning. It's a beautiful thing. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Take care.